Hey guys, Eric here from At Home in the Future. We check out the latest gear and gadgets for modern families. Hey, if you dig this video, be sure to press that like button and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. So maybe you've watched our ultimate camping chair comparison. You have the perfect chair and the perfect setup to use outside, but now you're looking for more opportunities to get out there. So, what's the next thing you should get? We think it should be an awesome fire pit. Now, when it comes to fire pits, there's really three popular options in the market. The first is a rustic fire pit. You don't even have to buy it, you just build it in your backyard. Maybe dig up some dirt, put it around a rock ring, and throw some wood in, and you have a fire. These rustic fire pits are great, but they're hard to start. Any sort of weather that rolls through, since they're not protected from the sides, they go out really easy. They produce a ton of smoke. You're constantly playing camp seat bingo, trying not to get that smoke blasted in your eyes. So for that reason, a lot of people look for different options. One of the biggest options people are looking at now is number two, and that's not a rustic fire pit, but what I call a rusty fire pit. And these are kind of the bowl-looking fire pits you see in a lot of people's patios. They sell them at the big box stores. And these are typically fine for like a season, because after that, anytime rain or any of the elements touch it, they rust super easy. They get worn out quick. They still produce all that smoke. So that leads us to the category of fire pit we're going to check out today, and these are the new smoke-free fire pits you see in the market. They use secondary combustion to limit the amount of smoke. They're really cool looking, they're really easy to start and keep going. So today we're going to take a look at the two leading brands in my mind of these fire pits, and that's Solo Stove and Breeo. Okay, these are the two different fire pits we're going to check out today. The first is the Breeo Double Flame 19. They have several different models, but this is their least expensive model. Now you'll notice right off the bat that this is significantly smaller than the Solo Stove product I have here to review today. This is the Solo Stove Yukon, which is their largest model. You could step up in the Breeo Double Flame to get a Double Flame 24 that matches this size, or you could go down in the Solo Stove model and get a Solo Stove Bonfire, which is hugely popular. So there's models that are comparable to each other, but both of these represent their model lines well, so we'll just compare their features together. The first thing you'll notice is they both have this nice all metal construction. On the Breeo, kind of their big selling feature in my mind is that it's made completely out of what I believe is 304 stainless steel, which is the steel that really doesn't want to rust. And this thing is rock solid. I mean, you can tell right away that every part of this, the walls are thicker. You can even see weld marks all over it. Yeah, it's really well built, super sturdy. You can see in the bottom, it actually has an integrated stand, and it has these vent ports inside that allow it to pull in air through their X-vent system. We'll get a close-up of that too so you can check it out. But both of these work using this idea of double combustion, where you see these rings of holes inside. The Solo Stove actually works the same way, but this thing is built super strong. It is super heavy. Even this smaller model, which is smaller than the Solo Stove Yukon, actually weighs quite a bit more. It's almost 50 pounds, and to be honest, it's kind of hard to carry around by yourself. I know you're not supposed to carry these by yourself, but I'm a guy and I'm going to be an idiot anyway to try to carry it. But this little lip kind of digs into you here when you're carrying it around, but it is super heavy and super sturdy. So let's take a look at the Solo Stove Yukon here. Now, equally really high quality construction, but you can tell that different parts of it use different types of steel. I believe the bottom and the inside still uses that super high quality 304 stainless steel, but I know there's some different steel used in different areas throughout it, which is why they don't recommend that you leave it out completely in the elements all the time. They have a nice, really cool cover accessory that you can use to keep it nice and clean. But the Solo Stove features its own kind of model here. You notice at the very bottom there's these holes that ring around. That's how it pulls air in. Now if I take apart this little shield that it comes with here, you'll see its ring of holes are a little tighter throughout the top of it. And it contains this large grate in the inside that's like a dome. So your wood and your burning material, rather than the X of this, it kind of keeps the wood up a little bit and allows air to go in. All these holes in this dome, it constantly keeps this airflow below your wood, which we'll talk about a little bit later in this review. Now you may have noticed that the Solo Stove does not have a stand built into it. If you buy the Yukon, I believe most of them come with this stand that you sit below it on the bottom. And that's really useful if you're going to be doing lots of burns on like a wood surface or even in your grass and you don't want to constantly leave these scorch marks everywhere. You're probably going to want to put something below these fire pits. Cost-wise, if you get roughly the same size model of each of these, they'll both be nearly identical to each other. It seems like the Breeo models cost a tiny bit more, But when you factor in that they have those included legs as a stand, the cost pretty much comes even, because most of these that you may buy, especially the bonfire model, a lot of those don't necessarily come with the stand ring that you definitely want. So when you factor that cost in, the prices are roughly the same. While we're talking about accessories, let's talk about a few of the specific accessories for each of these. You'll notice the Breeo models have, see, kind of heavy, have this integrated stand here in the back, this long slot. And that's for a really unique feature they have called the Outpost Grill. Now this thing is awesome, and again, this thing is rock solid, but it's a grill grate that has a pole accessory that you slide down in the back of this fire pit, and you attach this grill on here, and using the flames that this thing blasts out like a furnace, you can sear a steak, you can make killer hamburgers. We made some awesome steaks with it a week or two ago, and it's really, really cool. A really unique accessory that you don't see in the Solo Stove line. Now, I know that Solo Stove also makes a new grill model, but I haven't seen an attachment like this. And the cool thing with this attachment too is it also has a mounting point for the ground. So if you just want to use it over, I got a clump of grass in it. If you just want to use this over a campfire or even maybe another fire pit that you may have, that Outpost Grill is still a really cool accessory. All right, as far as accessories go for the Solo Stove stuff, you get this ring that kind of helps, I guess, redirect the heat from the fire. You may or may not need or want to purchase one of these stands. It may be included with your model, it may not. The two things that I've really enjoyed the most, I really, really love their Solo Stove fire tools kit. It's a log handler and like a fire poker, but these things are super, super sturdy. Having one of these log things to move around logs in the fire will absolutely change your life, especially if you're a pyro like me and like to constantly mess with the fire. Even this fire poker is so long, you can get a good wave from the fire pit. Split logs, move stuff around, just a killer accessory. And also, if you have kids in your home or just love to cook stuff around the fire, whether it's marshmallows or hot dogs or that sort of thing, you're really gonna want Solo Stove's I don't know what you call this, fire fork accessories. It comes in this awesome roll-up bag, and it has these incredible fire tools that fall out if you mess with the bag too much. But no, they screw together, they're in two pieces and screw together to make these awesome fire forks that again are super sturdy, rock solid. They're really long, they reach a far away so you don't get burned by the fire, but those are some must-have accessories, whether you have a Solo Stove or really any fire pit. Okay, let's talk about what you really came here to hear about, and are these fire pits worth it? Do they work? Should you spend the money to get one to have the ultimate fire pit experience in your own backyard? And the answer is absolutely yes. They both function similarly, but I feel like they perform a little bit differently, so let's talk about that for a second. So both the Breeo and the Solo Stove, the big feature is this secondary combustion thing, and that's what gives them that claim to fame, smokeless fire pit experience. Now, is it smokeless? No. Is it mostly smoke-free? Yeah, generally so. Once you get the fire going, if you keep it hot enough and well-fed enough, you're not having that giant column of smoke that goes all around the fire pit and gets everybody to constantly move chairs and stuff. You get this nice kind of heat experience where the fire and any sort of smoke that comes up out of it goes straight up rather than out and blowing around in your face. But like I said earlier, the way that these things work with the secondary combustion, when the fire gets hot enough in either of these, especially if it's against the walls and the inside, it heats that air that comes up through the side, spills it over the top of the wood, and where that fire is coming up, it makes it ignite again. It kind of burns off all that stuff that would normally contribute to that really smoky fire. So it works really well. So as far as pitting them against each other, now they both, again, are designed similarly. They both have these that secondary combustion system with the circles around the top and the cutouts. They both pull in air from the bottom. But I was honestly pretty surprised at how different they perform, especially in my own experience. I've burned multiple fires in each of these. So let me tell you how that works. So I got both of them going really good. They both produce awesome flames and everything. But I have to tell you that keeping a fire going and watching it just take off and do exactly what you want it to do, that was a much easier experience, surprisingly, in the Solo Stove than it was for me with the Breeo. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's comparing that X system in the bottom versus the Solo Stove's kind of dome setup where it lets all the air in. But for me, I found that fires in the Solo Stove took off super fast, got really hot really, really fast, and would just eat up any wood I threw in there. I mean, without even a second thought, without even having to tend the fire. I could walk away for 20 minutes. let it kind of smolder, throw in a log, and just whoosh, this column of flame would come out. With the Breeo, I had a more challenging time. I had a friend over a few weeks ago where we had a fire pit out here for a few hours, and there were several times for me the fire almost went out. And this is using the same wood. This is sitting right by it and tending it the whole time. But I feel like the Breeo for me took a lot more of my attention to keep the fire going. So that's just something to consider when you're thinking about which pit is right for you. Now both of them, when they're really going and really working well, you're going to see this really cool mesmerizing flame effect where the flames just kind of go straight up and waver. There's something about that secondary combustion system and the way that these work that the fire just looks really, really cool in these. I will say, if you're looking for massive radiant heat coming out and really keeping your group warm, I don't know if this type of fire pit is the fire pit for you. Again, just like the smoke or any sort of thing that comes off the fire, everything goes pretty much straight up. So it's kind of like this cone going straight up and out, rather than this radiant heat going out from the sides and everything. So even this larger solo stove model here, you could stand up beside it. I mean, you are hot. I mean, within 6 feet, just blazing hot on your face. But you could sit down just 3 or 4 feet away and you may not feel that radiant heat as much. So if you're looking for a fire pit during the winter months, or if you live in a really cold area where you're looking for this for like significant warmth, again, unless you're right on it, I don't think you're gonna feel it all that much. So wrapping things up, which one of these fire pit models do I think that you should purchase? To be completely honest, I don't think you're going to go wrong with either of them. I had some drawbacks in my experience keeping the fire going in the Breeo, but maybe that's user error. Maybe it got bad luck with the wood or something like that. I do think both of them have significant pros and cons. I would say this: if you live in an area or you have a setup where you want to leave your fire pit outside all the time and not worry about it through any sort of rain exposure or snow or anything like that, then the Breeo is probably a better choice in the long run. It's definitely made completely out of a better steel that's a lot more weather and rust resistant. Now, I don't have any worries necessarily about the solo stove, but they advise that you don't leave it out in the elements uncovered, so I'll take them up for their word on that. Now, both of these have excellent warranties, so don't let that stop you. If you really want that solo stove, but you live in where the elements are really crazy for you, or you really want the Breeo, don't let that stop you. But yeah, if it's going to be exposed all the time, maybe the Breeo is a better choice, or one of their models that are made to be exposed all the time. Now, I will say I found the solo stove, even in this giant model here, which I think is about 38 pounds. Again, this is significantly lighter than the Breeo. So maybe if you're going to go to different campsites and take your fire pit with you, then the solo stove would probably definitely be a better option. I just found it easier to move. I also did notice too, I feel like the solo stove model, there's less heat in the area below it. So whether it's a deck or whether it's part of your yard, where you don't want to burn up the grass or anything. The way that the Breeo works with that X system and those open pockets below, you can see that fire and sometimes see it lick out to the surface below it, even with the stand. Whereas the solo stove, it's totally sealed up in the bottom and you use that ring to keep it elevated. So if that's a concern for you, I think the solo stove is a good choice. Personally, for me, like, I am blown away by the solo stove. Again, it could be luck of the wood I'm using or anything. I feel like I'm using the same stuff in both. But every time I've used the solo stove model, it's been a lot more impressive for me, and it's really the experience I was looking for when purchasing a fire pit like this. But I know tons of people that have had a ton of success with the Breeo as well. So both are great options to consider if you're in the market for a fire pit like this. So I hope this video has been helpful to you. Again, if you dug it, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. But more importantly, take the time, research these, grab a cool fire pit for your family, and I don't think you'll find another way to have more fun outside in the fall or in the spring.